Hi, Jay.
Hey, Alex, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Go ahead and share my screen.
Hello, hello.
Work.
How we doing?
Amazing. How are you?
Alex, exactly the same. Just to
What?
my DNA, mate.
We'll give it 2 or 3 more minutes here, folks, to join before we get started.
Alex, I made a public Google Doc in case people want to talk through this. If you want to add it to the agenda here,
Great. Perfect.
yeah, it's what you reviewed before. But yeah, I mean, before I make an actual GitHub issue where we can discuss it, I thought I'd just make a Google Doc.
Wow.
And then if people are supportive today, we can make an actual like GitHub issue instead of OpenCost or a feature request.
We'll give it another minute, then we'll get started here. I think we're 5 past here. We can go ahead and get started here. Um, Welcome, everybody, to meeting number 73, OpenCost Community Meeting. Our first of 2026. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll start with community items. This is something that has been approved in prior meetings, but I still just haven't executed on it. We're going to have every either third meeting or every other meeting at 10 a.m. Eastern to better accommodate folks, especially in EMEA regions and things like that, folks in India, etc. So yeah, we were going to wait till the holidays are over. I know how to do it in the Linux Foundation thing. I just need to make that happen. So stand by for that. We'll make an announcement when that does happen. Moving on, OpenCost YouTube channel. Again, we had an OpenCost YouTube channel created and owned by CNCF folks, which is great. Um, it's been in existence for a while. The pipeline that posts these meetings to the channel has been breaking. So each meeting, we've been fixing the next phase in the pipeline. So hoping that we've got it end to end this time, and this will be the first meeting we publish. The blog, we have a nice 2025 year in review that Tomo made. So definitely check that out. And I believe this is being worked on amplified through the CNCF. So as an incubating project, the CNCF will amplify a limited number of our blog posts through their blog. So we'll try out this mechanism on this one, which I think is a great post to get our feet wet here. On the topic of maintainers, so this had been a topic of discussion amongst some of us offline, but wanted to sort of put it out in the meeting here. The concept of a community maintainer, right? So these are folks who are designated as maintainers, but aren't, expected to write code or review PRs and stuff like that. Tomo, with her Flux experience, of course, refers to what Flux does, right? So I linked in here, but this is like the Flux community team, and they, I would propose that if we do want to adopt this, we basically adopt the responsibilities from Flux, which is like product communications, right? Answering Slack stuff on social media, going to events, advocating in general for OpenCost, oversight of, they call for a specific repo, maybe not that, but like basically these two bullet points, I think we would almost copy verbatim, tip our hats to the Flux folks for providing that. Yeah, and then they basically, have sub owners for different things, but we would just sort of designate that as one group of responsibilities. And Rajith here from Randoli has, expressed interest in serving in this role. So we wouldn't simply introduce this new maintainer class empty. Rajith, do you want to say a few words on this, and and we can talk about it maybe a bit?
Sure. First of all, thanks for considering that. Obviously, my first choice would have been to, become a maintainer by writing code. I would love to do that, but sadly, my day-to-day activities don't allow enough time to kind of do that. But I've been sort of, participating in community events, I think, for the last 3 or 4 KubeCons. We did the OpenCost boot stuff. I think I've done 2 talks at KubeCon on OpenCost, including one of those ad hoc things that we signed up for at the CNCF Pavilion, and I've done a number of local meetups on OpenCost as well. Based on that, like Nitamo suggested, that might be a good way to kind of become a maintainer if you don't have the time to sort of write the code. So, happy to continue that role as much as I can. I generally show up at KubeCon almost every KubeCon, and so happy to continue to be a part of the OpenCost booth and do the talks that I normally end up doing. And if, I can also occasionally write those blog posts and stuff like that as well for the OpenCost website. So happy to support in that way. I think that's probably as much as I can promise. I mean, I don't, although like I said, I would love to, work in a couple PRs. It's probably not going to pan out very well given my schedule and the travel and stuff like that.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. And I think, this came up because designating folks as formal, maintainers then opens up more CNCF resources, basically. Like there are certain speaking opportunities that they want someone like formally affiliated with the project to apply. So this would basically empower those folks to go speak on our behalf. I'm very supportive of this. Is anyone against the introduction of a community maintainer class and the appointment of Rajith to our first community maintainer. Awesome. All right, all in favor. I will. I'll do all the GitHub logistics, and we'll be in touch there, Rajith.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's awesome. Cool. Moving forward here, very related, right? KubeCon Amsterdam, project talks. There are, multiple speaking opportunities here. It looks like Tomo did nominate you, Rajith, and we weren't sure if we were going to change the speaker after the fact, but since you're officially a maintainer now, I don't think that's necessary. And yeah, so these are submitted, right? As far as we know. I think so. Yeah.
She may have put your name for the time being, but
Okay.
we can
Well,
double check. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, so that'll be awesome if we can get some representation there.
And
Any other-
if you can, Alex, join. I think like generally what I find at KubeCon is when there is multiple speakers from different organizations, those talks tend to get more well received. Is what I generally see. So if someone from KubeCost can join, that'll be awesome. But otherwise, I'm happy to speak on my own as well. But we'll definitely welcome someone from KubeCost team or someone else from the OpenCost community. We can do it, something joint. But I guess he has to be a maintainer, right? That's the kind of the roadblock, I guess, of bringing other people. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if any maintainers want to co-speak, it's sort of project updates and for something like that, right? It's not like a crazy research project or anything. It's like giving project updates, overview, getting people interested and educating them on it. So yeah, let us know if that's of interest, because I absolutely agree with that cross-org apps will just seem stronger, right? Any other last community oriented thoughts or items for the agenda before we move on to tech stuff?
Alex, maybe just a couple words on the meeting cadence and where where we can have something in morning hours if possible. We're trying to bring in a few folks who are actually trying to work on the code, and this timing is a little bit difficult for them. So it would be great if we can have one meeting in the morning, which you already did. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. No, I think, sorry, that's the first thing we talked about, and maybe you weren't here for that. But yeah, so I mean, we voted on this and it was accepted that, it might be every third meeting or every other meeting will be at 10 a.m. Eastern to facilitate that. I just need to move stuff around in the project control center to make that happen logistically.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody on community stuff? Wonderful. All right, so our first sub-project, OpenCost infrastructure. We deployed iPerf to start testing out the cross-zone, cross-region costing aspects of OpenCost. We deployed it. Network cost isn't reflecting the result. Matt and I had a lot of back and forth this morning on why that is. We think it's because iPerf in one region or zone, excuse me, is hitting a service, which is then sending the traffic to the server in another zone, and that service IP is breaking our ability to correlate that. So we're going to try headless service and also, worst case, dynamically obtain the server pod's IP in the iPerf script so that we make a direct call from pod to pod and begin to demonstrate our network capabilities, start to test against it, all that good stuff. Still working on getting some cloud costs of any kind connected. We need some sort of an account with resources that we are comfortable, letting our demo users, so the world, read only, just to demonstrate that aspect of the software. Still in progress. We've been reaching out to all the cloud providers, any contacts we have there, more or less, to see if they're willing to sponsor us with an account with credits so that we can demonstrate that we work on their infrastructure. That's still in progress. Moving on to the integration tests. We have 2 open tests right now. One that tests for excessive pod restarts of the OpenCost pod itself to help us catch, some sort of chronic problem or stuff like that. And the network costs, which is related, blocked on this. Just revisiting this temporarily, and I'm sure we've almost lost these build logs eventually, but we have the comparison test issues here. This is a bad link, but OpenCost integration test. We have issues here where we are running comparisons. So one of this test, again, as a refresher, compares a Prometheus-backed OpenCost to a Prometheus-less OpenCost and compares, makes the same API request and compares the values. We have a lot of network discrepancies and some CPU stuff. But lion's share is network mismatches. Mark, I know last time we had you had said some stuff about this. Any updates here?
No, I just had Christmas off, so I haven't had a chance to look at it again. But I will be before our next meeting.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what you find there. All right. Yeah, so that's it for integration testing. We'll work on getting those tests passing and consistent. Our newest project, the OpenCost AI repo, we've merged our first PR here. Thank you, Adesh, for this. So he was our fall mentee, and part of his work was to build a containerized model. So this is an Ollama open source free LLM, and we're experimenting with, so we built the MCP server as part of the mentorship, but of course that requires the user to have access to an LLM, which, it might be hosted or cost money or something. So we're experimenting with hosting our own LLM and seeing what's the smallest model that we can get away with that helps you summarize your stuff, make savings recommendations, so that I know there's a lot of folks that run OpenCost air-gapped or on-prem, and they don't want that connection to a third-party LLM. So this is ongoing. Our next step here is to build some CI/CD to start building a container, and then we have our GPU node running in our OpenCost cluster. So at that point we can play around and see if we can run a model locally air-gapped, which might be fun, and even have it drive savings recommendations. Who knows? So that's our newest project here. On the UI, we released 1.119.1 with a few bug fixes. So thank you to Christian for handling that release process. I merged a few Dependabot PRs today just to maintain it. For any folks who are looking at UI stuff, we're stuck on our last 2 open PRs right now, which is Dependabot stuff. It's bumping the React version, which is always, exciting and a big change. As you can see, the Netlify rendering simply doesn't render. It says it's healthy, but nothing displays. So that is problematic. So that is sort of blocking that. So help wanted. Figure out what's going on there. Actually, we can look at this very briefly here and look at some hints. But if we open up the console here, it's this minified React error. I've never seen this error before, but maybe that's a clue for somebody on what's going on here. What else? So I was looking through some of the issues, and there are some concerns. There were some CVE findings on old images that are resolved now, but just got me thinking, we've recently put SBOMs in the OpenCost repo as part of our supply chain security stuff being spearheaded by work here. So for yesterday's release, we now publish SBOMs. Work, I was wondering, is this portable? Can we start publishing SBOMs on the UI container so that folks can see
Yes,
that we fixed packages?
Yep, I can get onto that, mate.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully you can just copy over the work.
Yeah, it's not hard.
And awesome. Well, thanks. Yeah, that will help us tighten that aspect of the supply chain and help let folks know that we've patched broken packages or vulnerable packages. I just picked one issue for triage on the UI here today for us to look at. Again, it's a couple of years old, but I think it's still legitimate. Um, this individual is requesting tuning for Nginx timeouts. Jay, I know you were involved in some of the back and forth here. Yeah, Helm changes. I don't think this is still, I think this is still not parameterized. Where's our Helm chart? Oh, there it is, topmost one. I don't think we parameterized this yet, so I think we need to leave this open. Let me just quickly check. Uh, yeah, this is still hard coded. So I think that this is still, excuse me, a legitimate issue. If anyone has any bandwidth to help close out this old issue, I think it's a matter of just taking the 180 and changing it, defaulting to a Helm parameter, but allowing the user to override. So yeah, that's open. Just gonna note down resolution still open. Cool. Any UI thoughts, questions, concerns before we move on? Cool. All right, moving on to the website. Likewise, I merged a number of small Dependabot PRs today. Easy ones, just checking that the rendering worked. Nothing too exciting there. This is something we've been carrying for a while. We'll write a blog post about changing the meeting times as part of our publication of that change. So once we actually make the change to the meetings, I'll take responsibility to write this, and we'll post that to the blog just to help folks stay aware of that. Right. So on the website, we have, let me go to the website here. Actually, it would be in OpenCost.io. On the website, we have, our supporting organizations or affiliates. These are organized alphabetically. They're supposed to be. Oracle is out of alphabetical order. So that's an open task if anyone has bandwidth. Otherwise, we'll just keep track it here and I'll get to it eventually. That's it for the website. Kind of quiet there this week. Yeah, and thanks again to Tomo for owning that and really advancing that a lot. Moving on to the core here of OpenCost. Again, we've released 1.119.1 of this. And yeah, a lot of enhancements there. And sort of one of our main things we're really excited about for this meeting is that Jay here has made some exciting proposals for adding LLM support. And maybe Jay, I'll hand it over to you if that's cool.
Yeah, sounds good. Do you want me to share the doc? Oh yeah, this is great. So this is just kind of a preview before I like formally post this on the OpenCost page. But I think just before we get into the technical pieces, I think just some historical context, right? Like when we started out writing OpenCost, I think we were really interested in sort of getting to the unit economics of Kubernetes, right? And the idea being that the sort of the reason we saw a bunch of enterprise adoption in Kubernetes, and this would have been 2018, which sounds like forever ago, but was less than a decade. Like was just like the idea that you could pool VMs to save money, but not really. But for a long time, it was hard to understand how much money you're saving, right? So you would have a bunch of teams like theoretically being more resource efficient by pooling a bunch of VMs, but you'd see costs increase, right? And so we were really trying to drive like the unit economics of virtual machines on Kubernetes and how much like you're getting per unit of work. That unit of work was always somewhat abstract in Kubernetes, right? There, we toyed with ideas of like adding a QPS monitor, etc., but never really, you know, got to the derivation there, just because people measure QPS or work outputs in different ways for traditional services. I do think that there's an opportunity here for generative AI to kind of standardize, since we're coming in relatively early on this sort of thing, to standardize like what is the unit of work produced by LLMs, and both in training and in inference. And I think it's sort of standardized on teams wanting to understand how many tokens they're creating, what's the cost of that token, and am I being efficient with it, am I not, am I getting the performance out of my like A100s versus A10s that would be expected. And that is sort of 2 or 3 hops to do today in OpenCost plus Prometheus. Not saying it's impossible by any means. Like we have the prices of GPUs. Like GPU pricing is first class. It's just if we can sort of standardize, both against OpenTelemetry and generative AI, how to measure and how to like label pods and things like that, and get this information out. I think we can kind of leverage the existing OpenCost pipelines to answer some of those questions. Some things like, again, that take a couple of different hops today are sort of like, how many tokens per second are we generating? What's the cost per token? And how are like which models and which GPUs also are sort of giving the best efficiency per dollar. Um, so once we implement some of these, I think you'll be able to see tokens per second per GPU. Those are some obvious ones. Some sort of less obvious ones that might be interesting. I don't see why I wouldn't put in telemetry here, but I'm not sure if people want to see this yet or not. Sort of like per phase, like inference versus training, so you can know how much of your budget's spent in various things, and summarizing by tenants or clusters, like where are my tokens being generated, and things like that. So if you scroll down a little bit, I've just kind of dumped out all the a bunch of statistics. Some of these, I would love to get back to OpenTelemetry, just so there's some standardization. Or I actually haven't looked in the new year. If there is a proposal on OpenTelemetry about some of these, my last check was no, but we'll get there. But basically tagging some of these things with attributes into Prometheus metrics, and emitting some of them from Kubernetes, right? So you can so those like, and I don't think there's an easy way to sort of fill out these specs. I think you're going to have to go into your like into your framework for working with LLMs to do that. But I think if we make these proposals as like how you fill out the telemetry from your framework, I think it's not even hard to just go in and like write proposals against some of these like open source frameworks that to emit these metrics, or to emit these attributes when they generate tokens. Yeah, so I think sort of the TLDR here is I'm going to post a version of this in the as sort of a feature request in OpenCost. Try and get some discussion going there around like what are the attributes you need. Take some of those discussions back to open telemetry or standards in general, and try and start filling these out. I think we're already doing some of this on the sort of KubeCost side, but would love to see more of that make it into OpenCost. If you scroll down, Alex, I think there's a couple more things there. Just some standardization on like labels, on metadata labels that you can drop on Kubernetes pods, for to pull them directly out of the Kubernetes API. Any questions?
I have one, Ajay. So
Yeah.
this is obviously, very powerful ideas. So I guess you're saying that this metric does not exist today. You're proposing that the underlying framework, because I guess that's the
I
essential.
think those metrics can be derived today out of I don't think they exist as a top line metric. I do think like you can go derive LLM GPU seconds total out of an ad hoc query that says like, okay, give me like if you the operator know which GPU utilization in your cluster is coming from LLMs, like you can go say like, okay, give me all the containers that represent LLMs, give me how many seconds they ran on the GPU out of the NVIDIA data center GPU manager. And then like you can build this top line metric. My proposal is that we kind of instrument that in OpenCost by virtue of we can there's a number of different ways. I'll kind of leave implementation to the reader, but for example, if we standardize like a Kubernetes metadata label that says like I am an LLM or something like that, then you can just publish this in OpenCost without running that like two-handed. Okay, give me the containers which are LLMs. Give me the seconds or the GPU metric telemetry data for those containers, and then like build this top level metric. You certainly could with a recording rule, though. There's nothing like you, the operator, if you know that information, can build it with a recording rule today. So I don't think these metrics exist today. The proposal, and open to feedback there, is that like if you set this metadata attribute in your container, then OpenCost will be able to just generate this LLM, this like data for LLMs based on our like and DCGM metrics and things you can write into Kubernetes and things that we know natively or that you can set up OpenCost configure on these like attributes. Does that sort of clarify the vision here, Alex? And open to feedback if.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that actually, you almost do pave a roadmap for implementation for these lower two ones, right?
Yeah, I don't want to get too into like the implementation. Like, there's certain things that are easier on implementation. If like other open source projects have standards that exist, right? So you can imagine like an enumeration of like, okay, PyTorch does like you can natively figure that out from PyTorch because it emits metrics in these ways. And so I think it's a mix of what's easy to implement via standard, what do we have to kind of like elbow grease in on a per framework level, which is the approach we've always taken with like AWS versus GCP versus Azure, right? Like we've always had to like fill out specifics within the like broader interface. But the interface like looks like this, and then like like Azure has some like, oh, we have to split the provider ID in this way to get the provider ID out, and I'm guessing it's going to be similar like per LLM framework, and you just take the ones that people are using and have this like long tail of interface to fill out if you're a new LLM framework or if someone wants to is like, hey, we're using I don't even remember the names right now, but they're using something else. Yeah.
So we would have to like build this one out, right? Because no one can know this but the LLM itself.
That's correct. You have to instrument it like there. That does exist though, right? Like, and it varies per framework, but there is, I know, like for example, in PyTorch, there is a this metric exists. It can be emitted to Prometheus. You just have to know, one, that it's like PyTorch, and two, that that metric is making it to Prometheus. But yes, like you would have to. It's a per framework abstraction, which is it's different from what OpenCost does today, but it's analogous to like we do have to slice open the AWS or GCP APIs to like get into cost specific metrics. So yes.
Right.
I have a couple of thoughts on this. So first of all, this is something that we've looked into.
Mhm.
Second, you almost always need the application side to emit some of these things, and you should be able to tie it into what the GPU is saying. So we've sort of like, I mean, we haven't done the other part, but we've definitely looked at the application side and tried to calculate the cost of the tokens and stuff like that. But this is also very interesting. I'm assuming why this is interesting is because of people who are going to run these workloads on-prem, right? I mean, most of the larger customers I've seen, they're running on OpenShift or that kind of like local setup, and they are very interested in this, understanding the efficiency of the LLM itself. But I think we might have to work from both sides. And then to Ajay's point, we looked around too. There's still no standard, so every framework will emit things in a different format. So you might want to be like, so one challenge is you'll have to translate that into some common format for us. And then I also see I guess the working group is also still kind of muddling their way through. So I don't know when they'll get that together, but I was told that it's in progress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah, go ahead.
never sort of yes. So first of all, I agree. There's work that will almost certainly have to be done on the application side to emit data. That's fair. As far as like running ahead of standards, like we've never kind of shied away from it. Like OpenCost predates the Focus spec, right? And some of the Focus spec work came out as a result of the like standards work we've tried to drive with OpenCost. So I mean, like slicing these open on a per framework basis and like interfacing out all these various frameworks to generate this like one standard is not something we've shied away from, even if like you're gonna despair to get every single framework. We've had like for example like we built the interface and someone built out the scaleway interface for cloud cost metrics, right? So it's like BYO, but the idea being like if you want OpenCost to have these metrics, like and you're like one of these like long tail frameworks, like you go implement them and make sure you can emit data like this, and then we just go from there.
Ajay, I think we probably might have an opportunity to influence the hotel spec if possible. I mean, that'll be ideal if we can. But I mean, it's worth a try. But I do agree, though, if you wait for them to come around, it'll take some time. But I have a feeling that if we can influence that in some way, form, then these frameworks will start to. They all have an interest in standardizing an hotel, right? So, they might follow suit, but we can give it a try. We can try and propose these things I mean, I don't know how far it'll go, but it's worth a try. At least
I think
yeah.
Even just starting to talk about these like pushes it in the right direction, and it is still very early days, right? But there is and part of it is like there will be a like right now budgets are large, right? Like you don't really care how much you're spending on your
That's coming to an end.
your model R&D, but the hangover is coming, right? So I think the more we can position these like standards to start emitting these metrics in a sane way, like when that day comes, we'll be making we'll be saving a lot of work for the operators who have to go like answer questions about how much a token costs and like is it worth it. So just wanted to kind of like throw this out there. I'll post assuming this is a direction we want to be pushing OpenCost. I'll post more on the as like kind of a feature request format, and then we can discuss there and talk about actually how we might implement something like this when the standards are not well defined, and how that might influence broader open telemetry standards on what these metrics are, and even if we miss the mark and OTel, it will be like different in the future. Like we're open to like going back and cutting a version that is that respects the OpenTelemetry metrics, which we've done in the past, right? Like C-Advisor has had metrics that were not exactly like OpenTelemetry. They change over time, labels change over time. You just bite the bullet when it comes and do like a migration. So
I mean, happy to join forces. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, if you can post this, I'll have a look, and I'm happy to comment. And
Yeah. If you want to take, what I'll do is I'll probably give this a couple days to comment privately before we go like public on the OpenCost website. This is the semi-public doc, but feel free to review this, add anything you might want to add, and then I'll post one version, and then we can get kind of RFP it.
Sure.
RFC it. Excuse me.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing this up. I think it's a good initiative.
Okay. Thanks, Rajiv.
One last question, Jay, just like maybe a 30-second.
Yeah.
Is how do you, so we collect this information. Do you envision this being attached to an allocation? Do you envision a new pipeline that's, disconnected? Like and I know you don't want to be prescriptive here, but like,
yeah. It looks like I think I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share some of the or maybe it's beyond the scope of this, but some of the KubeCost designs, I can show you. It looks very much like an allocation when you break this data down. I think it's kind of on an allocation. It's like the idea is in my mind of like how people want to see this is as an allocation. In the sense that it's like, okay, this pod produced this many tokens over this time period for this cost. Is that good or bad?
Gotcha.
And that's the like allocation level thing. I think that this also feeds right sizing in some sense, right? Like because eventually like the question becomes like, okay, what am I spending on inference between the hours of 9 PST and 5 PST, or 9 to 5, right? And then like if that inference spend drops, can I do more training when during non-business hours, right? Like or like what are the best hours for me to run my training jobs? Like is there like do I end up with if I bought a bunch of GPUs, am I building out like an internal marketplace for inference and training where like the cost of training should go down, like the virtual cost should go down when there are unutilized training pieces, right? Like I think this is the first building block to building that pipeline. There is a predecessor here, sort of. It was a company called Run.ai. NVIDIA recently open sourced a lot of Run.ai stuff, but that was a to my mind, that was like NVIDIA saying we are not actually interested in pushing forward optimization because it reduces our own bottom line. I encourage you to look at some of the Run.ai open source stuff. It has not, to my mind, done anything since the NVIDIA acquisition. It's neither here nor there on whether that's good or bad. But I think like there's an opportunity for us to pick up the baton of what they were doing, and there's stuff to learn in their open source too. It's a really interesting read if you haven't like looked through some of the Run.ai stuff that NVIDIA has open sourced.
I have a question. I mean, it's interesting you mentioned like to get the GPU inferencing data, NVIDIA. I mean, that's the only one that I am aware of as well. Do you think that they would be setting the benchmark and the standards for how the GPU data is exposed?
Yeah. So there's a tool called NVIDIA, DCGM, Data Center GPU Manager. Those metrics are already first class in OpenCost, right? Like we pull them and send them. I think a couple of things are missing from the DCGM, namely like GPU sharing stuff is somewhat opaque.
You're talking about like the new what's it called? Is it called DRAM? Like the slicing, right? Like you're talking
slicing, like time slicing is a little bit opaque there. So NVIDIA does define these standards. Like, I don't think there's been a ton of it's not like their biggest hair on fire problem to like push these standards forward and do the exactly the right things. Now you can go into the GPU level and like slice it open a little bit more to like get some sharing stuff out of it. Um, sorry, not the GPU level. What did I say? What did I say? You need to go into the container operating system level to like get it, like to do a little bit more than what NVIDIA has, and I haven't seen anyone do that yet. Although I have a couple of notes about projects that have gone tried to address some of the like time slicing attribution errors going on, but at some point.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the GPU, sorry, the NVIDIA GPU data center thing, is that different from what the GPU operator metrics emit, or are they the one of the same?
I think the operator deploys DCGM for you. Is that right?
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
keep me honest here. Yeah. The operator like just deploys and manages updates on DCGM for you. You can deploy DCGM yourself, and I
Gotcha.
actually think that for time slicing within DCGM, again, I have not checked this year or in the last couple of weeks, but I think that like you have to go into the container yourself and like or maybe not even maybe even the node itself and like understand the like where the GPU has sent what like clocks, like seconds on the clock kind of thing.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, I haven't heard it. There was a big hahoo on, like, during KubeCons about this whole what's it called, this resource slicing thing. They were trying to like make it like GPU agnostic, but like I forgot the name. I think it was DRAM. No,
Yeah, I
DRA,
think
DRA, dynamic resource allocation, right?
yeah, I think that's right. I don't know all the details there, and also like I also don't care too much about being like vendor agnostic here, like in the sense that like let's build the NVIDIA stuff first, and then we'll see what other GPUs people are using. But there's a couple of interesting vendors here. I'm actually engaged with one, with a different one than NVIDIA, called Furiosa,
Mm,
that builds these like NPUs, which are slightly different than they're like a different kind of chip,
yeah.
um, for
Mm.
uh, for for allocation, um, and inference, or they're like inference specific chips. It's some really interesting stuff. If you want to go back to some like low level hardware kind of work.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. The only reason I mentioned DRA was that it might give us an easy way of attributing the cost back to the pods, but I don't know what the uptake is for DRA at all.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ajay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of appetite to move forward with this.
All right. I'll get Rajith and anyone else interested. I'll give a couple of days on the private Google Doc if you want to post stuff there, and then we'll just go live maybe next week on a feature request and maybe start the drumbeat on trying to get some standardization in OTel. And we'll just go from there.
Sure.
All right. Cool. We'll move on to our agenda then. Another OpenCost correlated issue. We're having some trouble with our integration tests flaking. I just wanted to call this out just so that we're aware. Right now, we run our integration tests on every merge, and we have weird errors occurring here. So, like, for example, we are seeing one of our tests, confirms that OpenCost APIs return the same results as Prometheus, right? And there seem to be some mismatch in terms of annotations and labels, which is very unusual here. Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, just wanted to sort of call that out that like we're currently blocking all merges on OpenCost while we take a few days to see if we can figure out the problem. So the characteristics of the failure are we're always off by one. Prometheus always has one more than the allocation API in terms of pods that it thinks are running. And these must be in a different order, so the diff doesn't help us that much. But usually it's a core DNS pod. And these come up and come down and they're destroyed. I don't really know what's going on here. It's very unusual because OpenCost, of course, under the hood is just like querying Prometheus. So that is, an open thing that we're looking at on the KubeCost side. If anyone wants to step, oh yeah, here it is. Here's it. So there's an extra core DNS pod. Really weird. We need to look at the ground truth and I don't know, single step through it to see why uh, Prometheus has a pod that the allocation API doesn't have. Anyway, that's what's blocking merges right now, just to let everybody know. If we get too far behind and we can't resolve this, we'll disable integration tests to keep the code flowing, as it were, but just wanted to call that out. A few PR, we're short on time here, so I think we'll skip group PR review on this aspect of it and move on to the Helm chart. Again, 1.118.1 of the Helm chart is released, containing all of the images for the subproducts that have also been released. I'm just reviewing a few older PRs that are open. Rosa had opened this a while ago, a couple months ago. And Sean had agreed to adopt it. I'll check in with him on this. If anyone else wants to adopt this, I think it was really close. Sean just had a few questions here. So, I think enough to block it, but, we've got to go ahead to adopt that and push it forward from Rosa. Same thing here is, there is, and we're seeing this in the Slack channel too, and honestly in issues too, that folks are having trouble with pricing configs. So Ishan is working on this, fixing mounting. I don't think any updates there. Our other open Helm chart project that's underway is Hunter here, who is going to make a UX enhancement in the form of a schema. So I think there is a lot of excitement from the group around this. There is just some refactoring stuff here, to use schema references rather than just embed the whole schema that we're working on there. Sean had asked us to do one group review here. So I think probably most of us here are aware Ingress Nginx is going away in what, a month and a half, 2 months. So this individual has contributed a fix that adds a HTTP route. And I think this looks good. Parent refs, namespace, section name, host name, rules. It does have path types. HTTP, HTTP routes, so they're breaking up the UI. And this, I think that's good. And then the separate one for the MCP. The chart version is bumped. And I'm wondering if, HTTP route enabled. All right, so it is behind a flag. I think we're generally safe here. It looks like the docs are in order. Does anyone have any concerns about merging this initial support for the Gateway API so that we're not in trouble when we lose our ingress controller in a few months? Looks good to me. We've looked at this. A few of us have looked at this async. And they so updated the README, which is nice. So I think this looks good. We'll prove it. Awesome. Cool. And yeah, we'll test that out. We'll install a gateway, Envoy gateway, and play with that and mature in the coming months. Awesome. Plugins. There was some chatter about it in Slack today. Yeah, these need to be reviewed and need worked on. It's all on me. I'll get to it eventually. Is what it is. Looking forward here to our mentorship. For for the spring. The term starts in like mid-February or something like that. We're proposing to have one mentee working on UI elements. We've talked about this briefly in the past, but OpenCost UI could probably use a revamp. So, I know that there are folks out there excited to work in this domain. So, I'm going to put together a project proposal for that. Wanted to put it to the group. We don't have to talk about it here. We certainly can, but we don't have to talk about it here. If anyone has any other product ideas or like features that you think an individual could implement in the space of 3 months, full time on it, 3 months, let us know. And we can leverage that amazing program. It's been great so far for us. It's really accelerated our project here. So that's it. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda here. Does anyone have any go backs, other topics to talk about, anything at all for this week? All right. Well, thanks again, everybody. Congrats, Rajeeth. And again, I'll make these changes to give you access to the things you need. And yes, stand by for announcements on meeting changes. But I do expect that at least our next meeting will be at this time in 2 weeks.
Okay. Alex, I know we're running short of time. Just out of curiosity, can you say a sentence or two about the Snowflake plugin? Do you know where that came from? Do you have a bit of an interest on that? That's why I was curious to know.
Yeah, so the Snowflake plugin, where is it? The Snowflake plugin, it was submitted by a member of the community to measure Snowflake costs.
Okay.
I have no reason to suspect that it doesn't work. It just needs to be tested, right? And it's a matter of hooking it up to your Snowflake account, right? And seeing what it looks like, right? And I don't really have a free Snowflake account. I could create one. I know Snowflake has a free like developer tier or whatever. I don't really want to hook this up to organizational stuff. So that's sort of the status here, right? I wish that I had a better reason why it's blocked. It's just a bandwidth capacity issue. So
Okay.
if you're, someone on your end is interested in this, like we can build it, get it installed, and like check the numbers out. And if it looks good, we could ship this.
Okay, cool. Let me see what I can do, and I'll try and reach out to this person as well to get a little bit more understanding of what exactly they have done and why they've done it. Yeah. Oh, someone from Canada too. Like, damn. Okay.
Yeah. Vishy's great. Yeah. He's been active in many capacities. So,
okay. Let me reach out and see, and we might struggle to find a test environment, but we have someone who's interested in Snowflake, but from an observability point of view, for our observability platform. So we might be able to, double down on this and see if we can get some actual testing. So don't hold me to it, but we will give it a try to see if we can move this forward.
Great. Yeah. And, maybe it just works. If it doesn't, I'm sure that there's some back and forth, and I'm sure
we can provide some feedback.
Excited to help work on this.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you in a few weeks.
See you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.